Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for Unwrapping Cyber Weekend. Today, I am with Craig Brown, who is going to take us through all of the trends that happened over Cyber Weekend and how you can use those and roll those into your campaigns in the run-up to Christmas. Before we get started, just a little housekeeping. So today's presentation will be about 30 minutes long. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat and ask throughout, and Craig will answer them as we go. The presentation is also being recorded, so if you have to leave partway through, you'll get it and you can listen to it no matter what. You can also share it with your colleagues if you like. So now I'm going to hand it over to Craig, who will take you through Black Friday.
Thank you for joining, everyone. So just to start with a bit of a summary of the week. I think Black Friday this year was slightly lower key from an advertising point of view, especially in the above the line and email sectors. There definitely hasn't been the same complete saturation and bombardment of Black Friday messaging, emails constantly. I think last year I was getting emails from Amazon like every 2 hours. That definitely wasn't the case this year. So advertisers definitely seem to have settled down a bit more, and I feel like we're finally starting to find a trend for what Black Friday is going to look like in the UK, and more that whole cyber weekend, which is a positive because it makes it much easier for us all to understand what is going to be happening. So moving on from sort of that top line view, we'll just look at what's happened from sort of the middle of October through until last weekend. In terms of clicks and revenue, and this is pulled across NMPI's advertisers. If we look at this, we can really see, as you'd expect, it's relatively flat from the end of October through until the middle of November. And then we really see traffic first in the blue line start to pick up in that week before Black Friday. We know a lot of advertisers now do go what we refer to as go early, where they'll start doing promotions from the Monday, even the Friday in some instances before. That isn't necessarily reflected as much in a pickup of revenue, which again, we expect. Consumers are very savvy now. They know that as the week goes on, generally the offers will get better as you go into the weekend. We can see Thursday was a pretty strong day, but then Friday is really where it peaks. And then interestingly, we see a bit of a fall away from the Friday, which isn't something that we saw in 2017. In 2017, we really saw the Monday perform as well as the Friday, whereas Monday actually performed worse than the Sunday this year. This is an interesting trend and something different to what we've seen before. And it really does show that maybe people are becoming more accustomed to just wanting to get it done. The promos aren't going to change much over the weekend now. Once the promos are there, then that's what you're going to get. So people are likely to buy on that Friday now to get it done, get it out of the way, make sure they can then go into their weekend and not have to worry too much about continuing to remember what they want to buy or where they want to buy it from over that weekend. If we look specifically at the Friday, again, we see some interesting trends that are different to what we've seen in previous years. When Black Friday really first became big in the UK around 4 years ago, what we did see is that performance really peaked in the morning. Sort of between the hours of about 6 and 12 was really when we saw the peak of traffic and the peak of revenue. I remember the first year that I sort of really tried to do Black Friday, trying to get on some of the bigger retailer websites in the UK was a real struggle, and there was hours and hours of waiting just to even be able to get on the site before you could even try and find anything. That's definitely calmed down slightly. If we look at the graph on the right hand side that shows traffic by hour and more specifically device, we can really see that it is much more even. But interestingly, what we've now seen is a more traditional shift. When I say traditional, in terms of when people normally buy and when people are normally online looking to purchase, of those evening hours, and specifically on mobile, those what we've referred to as commuter hours. So between the hours of about 4 and 9 is where we really see traffic on mobile start to ramp up. Interestingly, desktop, we're still seeing that similar trend where it falls away during the day, but it also, when we look at those traffic volumes from mobile, it shows how big mobile is and how important it is. If we look at the left-hand side with conversion rate, we also see a similar trend with conversion rate phasing up. Across almost all devices, there's a strange peak with tablet around mid-morning, but generally there's an upward trend in conversion rate. Now, what that shows is that the traffic, not only is it increasing, especially on mobile as we move further into the day, but also that traffic is becoming more qualified and is more likely to purchase. This is, while it's great because it gives us an understanding of what's happening, it's also a difficult trend for us to really be able to work towards, because you have to have faith that your day is going to get better. You're going to see more traffic coming in those evening hours, and when those people do come in, they're also going to convert. Now, for next year, that's a learning. It's know that if the day starts off slower than you expect, know that there is going to be sales coming through in the evening. Those people coming onto site are going to convert. Be prepared to push harder in the evening. That is risky to a certain extent because it means your campaigns are less monitored during that time. So make sure that you've got alerts set up to identify you if there are trends that you don't want to happen. If you're seeing your CPA increase loads, if you're seeing CPCs go up hugely and conversion rates falling away, make sure you've got those in place next year to protect you. But really it shows that this is going to be, Black Friday is going to be very similar to what we see most of the rest of the year, where it's going to be those evening hours that are going to perform best for us. If we look at channel specifics and we break it down to search, social and display, what we can really see if we look at the middle column is that traffic gets more expensive. CPCs and CPMs across all platforms increase. It's what we expect. People know their conversion rates are going to go up, or they expect their conversion rates to go up, and so they're more prepared to push traffic harder. We can actually see on the right-hand side that conversion rate does at least match, if not outweigh, the increase that we see in CPCs, which is a real positive. But let me touch on the left-hand column first in CTR. What this really shows is that our average positions at NPI don't really change that much on search, and obviously average position isn't a thing on social, but we do see CTR increase slightly on display, but particularly on social and search. What this indicates is that consumers are more likely and have a higher propensity to click on ads over the cyber weekend compared to the previous weekend. That's not a huge surprise. It's what we expect. They're seeing offers. We know from all the testing we've done at NPI that we see people are more likely to click on sale ads than they are non-sale ads. But what this really allows us to do is see that those offers are having a big impact and making people click. But the most important part of this slide is definitely that conversion rate versus CPC or CPM change. With the conversion rate going up, it does mean that your CPAs are falling, which is really important for you to understand that there is area for you to push, potentially push harder, knowing that conversion rate's going to be there. Interestingly, search is the one that we've seen increase the least this year in terms of the CPCs. It's not what we traditionally expect. Search has always had so much focus on it that that's been the area that everyone's pushed all of their spend towards. And I think this is showing a trend in the marketplace that people are becoming more aware of the role of social and display in their marketing activity, which is definitely a positive. But it does potentially show there's a small gap for search and there's an area to push harder. That's a positive. Social display, slightly more time consuming. You have to get your creative done. It's worth pushing, and we can still see the CPA decreases. It's still worth investing. You don't just want to be trying to invest everything within search based off these numbers, because you will hit a capping point where for every penny you invest, you'll just start losing money. But it shows that there is still an opportunity for you to push search harder as we move into these more important time periods and where there's more search volume. There is a question here around, should we be pushing more budget into mobile over the Christmas period and into 2019? That's a very difficult question to answer because it's all dependent on your business. If your business has really high AOV products or services, mobile is going to play a very, very different role to what it does if you have really low AOV items that you can move quickly and your conversion rate's much higher. So yes, you can look at pushing more budget into mobile over the Christmas period, but just understand what role mobile plays within your business before you make that decision, and make sure that you're looking at it in the correct way and monitoring your KPIs on mobile. Potentially look at traffic, and also if you have an attribution system, look at where those clicks are going if you come from a higher AOV product or service, to make sure that those mobile clicks are going on to convert. If we move on to look at some of the opportunities for next year, on top of the ones that we've sort of spoken about in still being able to push search and potentially using mobile to drive more, one of the big ones we'd like to pull out is comparison shopping service. So this was launched earlier this year by Google, sort of as a result of some of the anti-competition things that have been going around. And what it allows to happen is other comparison shopping services to enter into the Google shopping results. And what they've done to reward this and allow more people entry into that space is if you're showing ads through a comparison shopping service, such as Buy that we built at NPI, there are other ones out there, that you will see a 20% reduction in your CPC when you enter the auction. Now, based on the previous slide where we saw CPCs and CPMs increase across all services and all channels, we definitely recommend for this to be something that you look at in the run up to Christmas. Anywhere, especially on Google, that you can save money on CPCs is going to make a huge impact on your business. Not only that, it's also pretty easy to implement. All it takes is for you to sign up with a CSS provider and then duplicate your campaigns targeting the CSS feed rather than targeting the CSS Google Merchant Center rather than targeting your standard Google Merchant Center. So it's not a lot of work, it's not a lot of setup for you to be able to save 20% on your CPCs. On top of this, if we look at sort of shopping and more feed-based activity in a broader sense, it's really starting to be pushed further. When we look at what Google are doing with the Google shopping results, how they're almost prioritizing them over text ads, it shows that it's becoming a bigger factor for them. It probably means they're seeing more clicks through Google Shopping than they are through their text ads, and therefore it makes more commercial sense because that's what consumers want to push the product-led advertising. If we look at what's happening on Facebook, they're really rewarding people at the moment, not just for using their dynamic retargeting, where people see the products that they've viewed, but also dynamic prospecting, which looks at the behavior on someone online and shows them products that they think they will be interested in. We're seeing much lower CPCs and much higher conversion rates on those than we have been through sort of standard single image ads or standard carousels or even video. Now, that really does show the consumer shift to everything being product focused rather than necessarily being brand focused almost. And Facebook are going one step further. So Facebook have also launched in alpha in the US, a product which almost matches Google Shopping. So what they're doing is they are compiling similar products across multiple advertisers to show in one ad format. This really does show the importance that even Facebook are putting on feeds. And while it's not available to everyone at the moment, shows that they are trying to move much more towards that automated product system. The next thing we want to talk about is making sure you maximize your data. GDPR, everyone talks about it, it has been big, and we have seen a reduction in the availability of first-party cookies and also email addresses you can use to target, but nowhere near to the extent that we thought was going to happen at the beginning of this year. Now, Christmas is the one time of year that you will be getting sales from people who aren't typically your consumer because people are going through that gifting phase. So use your data, use your CRM to understand where people have bought last Christmas or the previous Christmas, but don't fall within your standard demographic. Use those email addresses to identify those consumers on AdWords, Facebook, Instagram, and target them with ads. They only buy from you once a year. They're not going to be brand loyal to you. They may not even remember where they got it from. So make sure you're giving them the tools to come and purchase from you. The other side of things, especially here, is around gift cards. Gift cards are huge at this time of year. We often see with clients their top search terms for traffic and conversions outside of just their brand term is their brand term plus gift card. So it is a huge part this year. If you see people who have bought gift cards consistently from you, it probably means they're gifting. Make sure you give them the tools to be able to quickly purchase from you and tie in that sale. If you know they're only going to buy gift cards, just show them gift card messaging and drive them through to the gift card page. We really can't emphasize this enough in the ability to make sure you are targeting people. And while the CPCs will be higher, you know the chance that these people are going on to convert is also significantly higher. The final thing to touch on is just what to do in the run up to Christmas and some of those dates for you really to make the most of. The first one is last delivery date. Christmas falls at a bit of a weird time this year with it falling on a Tuesday. It does mean that we sort of have Christmas Eve on the Monday, which is slightly strange. A lot of businesses will close on that Monday. We know the schools will be off on that Monday. So it almost gives us a 3-day weekend to continue getting those last minute gifts in. Now, just be careful with when your last delivery date falls. There will still be a lot of searches. There will still be a lot of sales happening from Friday the 21st through to that Monday the 24th. But if you're not going to be able to make deliveries and get those deliveries out on the 24th, make sure you've really cut back on your advertising spends, but also where you do still have advertising live, you're letting consumers know that they're not going to get it delivered in time for Christmas. If you have a store presence though, click and collect and what's available in store is going to be huge. They're going to be people's last chances to purchase. We know store sales always go up massively, but it's not all going to be constricted to the 24th this year because people have the Saturday and Sunday and the Monday to try and do this. One of the ideas is if you want to push aggressively and you're looking at stores, try cutting down, not from targeting nationally, but targeting locally around your stores, maybe a 20-mile radius. It allows you to push aggressively, but only to those people who are going to be able to get to your store in a reasonable amount of time. The other thing is having touched on mobile earlier, is to make sure that mobile is a significant part of what you're doing when you're looking to drive people in store. When you look at the increase in near me searches coming from Google and Bing, at the moment, it's monstrous and they just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But that is almost all isolated to mobile because of the location element to it. So make sure if you are looking to drive people in store, you're making the most of mobile. There's a question here around what key dates should we be looking at, apart from delivery dates that we've just touched on. Also make sure that you're looking at all of the Mondays. The Mondays are the big days in December, as they are in most weeks, but especially in December. Don't get them wrong. Make sure that you are pushing and you're pushing in the right areas, especially in the evenings. That's where we know where conversion rate is. It's where we know the search interest rate is. So make sure that's what you're pushing. Thank you very much for taking the time and for listening. If there's any questions, please drop them in the chat and I'm more than happy to answer them. If there aren't any more that come through in the next minute or so, have a great Christmas and good luck with your advertising in the run up to it.